this brings us to, and I've talked to a few people, and I've always heard talking to my folks, and there are people listen to us on the show in the media world, and they'll say, I don't think Clay's idea about Hillary is crazy. I got someone reach out to you about this yesterday. Like, I don't think it's beyond the. First of all, here's what we do know for sure. Is Hillary Clinton among the most power-hungry human beings you could ever point to in modern American history? Therefore, she would jump at the opportunity to run again? Absolutely, right? I don't think anyone thinks that there's – and then you look at, well, what would that look like with the situation of Biden's polls and his age and everything else? It starts to seem less crazy. That's also, though, why the Hillary spying story that we talked about yesterday and the rest of the media, other than obviously Fox and some other places, completely ignored, really does matter. It does matter.
And here's why I say Hillary. And by the way, we got to play this AOC because one reason that I think the Democrats are going off a cliff is they followed people who get popularity on social media but don't necessarily resonate anywhere else. Remember, only 1 in 50 people ever comments on social media, meaning like Twitter, where the media spends all its time. I should have specified Twitter, but listen to this, Buck. Kamala Harris is a disaster. Let's start. Joe Biden can't run.
Wait,
right?
Kamala Harris is a disaster?
Yeah.
Stop
Joe
the
Biden
presses.
is going to be 82 running a presidential campaign. He would be 86 when he's done. I don't think he's capable physically of running a campaign, and I don't even think that unless COVID resurfaces and they're able to run another campaign from the basement, Joe Biden has no chance. I really don't think that the Democrats believe that. Kamala is a disaster, but it would be racist and sexist not to put her forward. Mayor Pete is probably the next guy, but I can't believe nobody's willing to say this. Mayor Pete is not able to be elected as a Democratic nominee because he's gay and because a huge percentage of the black electorate is not going to vote for a gay guy to be president as the nominee. Now, could he be vice president? Maybe. But look at what happened to him in South Carolina. It's as if nobody will actually analyze it. Mayor Pete, as a gay man, is not going to be selected in the Democratic primary, which has such an overwhelming amount of black people who are voting in it, because there is a huge collection of black voters who are very religious and are opposed to the idea, I believe, of a gay nominee. And it's like they won't touch it in mainstream politics because it would require some sort of analysis that would allow people to say, wait a minute, maybe just Republicans are not these awful homophobic people. There are actually Democrats that are homophobic too, which is a reality and is the truth, all right? I don't believe Klobuchar. I don't buy it. I don't think she has the sort of gravitas to be. It's going to be Hillary. Hillary is going to be the nominee. But let's talk about Hillary.
This is calling your shot, Clay, because
I'm calling it.
We're talking about years in advance.
I am calling it years into the future right now. Hillary Clinton is going to be the Democratic nominee for 2024. Unless, caveat here, unless Durham puts her in prison. All right? Because I'm telling you, this is me taking off anything other than just
there's no way she's going to prison. They'll never do it. They'll never do it. And by the way, it doesn't matter what the evidence is because they would make essentially a political argument in the prosecutor's offices that this would rattle the country too much.
And I get that. I actually get that. And I feel the same way, by the way, about Trump because they're like, oh, he's going to go to prison. You have to arrest. No. If I think in general, if you are arresting a major party political candidate, you are, and it's for something, let me say this, it's for something other than like murder, right? Like if Hillary Clinton had a gun and she finally got furious with Bill Clinton and she shot him and we were like, okay, it's a clear case of homicide here, then I'd be like, okay, you could charge the president or the presidential candidate with a crime. Absent some sort of act of violence, I think the idea that you're going to arrest someone is difficult to pull off. So I think Hillary's going to be the nominee, which makes this Durham spying allegation so much more significant.
It's completely wrong. It did not happen. There was no spying. There was
it's Pizzagate. The conspiracy gene.
Exactly. It's Pizzagate.
The conspiracy gene is no more accurate than Pizzagate.
No one was spying on the president through the microwave.
No one spied on the Trump campaign.
There was no spying.
There was no spying.
No spying.
There was 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 no spying. There was no spying.
Wow. By the way, there was no spying, of course.
There was no spying.
There was no spying
on the Trump campaign.
on the Trump campaign.
It's been a year and a half.
There was no spying on the Trump campaign.
Of this crap.
No spying on the Trump campaign.
Which is a conspiracy theory.
No spying on the Trump campaign.
It's a conspiracy theory. There's
How
no
great are those
spying.
clips?
No spying on the Trump campaign. The problem with that is that every single one of those anchors, and that was quite a that was a montage of montages. That was pretty exceptional. They're all wrong. There absolutely was spying. There are FISA spying things that happened. We've talked about this so much for so many years, and we're going to be talking about it more because you had these revelations from the Durham probe, which is ongoing, and Attorney General Bill Barr deserves credit for this, folks. He put an absolutely dogged prosecutor and a really relentless guy. I mean, the Durham, as a U.S. attorney in Connecticut, he was known as a guy who, if you were guilty, you did not want this to be the prosecutor you were dealing with. He's the real deal, and he's apparently pretty non-political. I've never heard anyone say that he was a partisan hack, which was, that was known about Comey for a long time. He was really a Comeyist. But Clay, in these tertiary filings or whatever it is that have just come out, if Hillary knew more about this, and that actually is provable and demonstrable, the spying has already been proven, but who knew it? When do they know it? This could be a problem for the lady that you think right now, and many others, by the way, could end up trying to make another run for the presidency. And she even got asked about it today, right, in New York City, and just dodged the questions.
Yeah, the Daily Mail, to their credit, had a reporter on the sidewalk, that story just coming out and breaking. Hillary, pretended she didn't hear it or waved or whatever as she was walking into a building. She was directly asked about allegations that her campaign had been spying on Donald Trump, and not only while his campaign was ongoing, but also in the early days of his presidency as well. And look, this is what Trump. Remember the Leslie Stahl interview that Trump with 60 Minutes put out, the interview of his own side. And by the way, this is advice that I would give to any Republican who is running for office at any national level, certainly, but state level, maybe even congressional level. Have your staff record every single interview that you do.
This needs to be exposed. The truth needs to be told. The American people deserve the truth, and these people need to be held accountable. And you know who really needs to be held accountable? Probably the primary co-conspirators is the mainstream media. I don't believe they were just simply duped. I think they were complicit in this. They continue to be complicit in this. I'm facing it right now in Wisconsin, running for re-election. The Democrat Party, they make something up. The mainstream media picks it up and runs stories on it.
Yeah.
We are up against powerful forces, Jesse, and Americans must awaken to this.
We can handle the truth. You can handle the truth. That's why you listen to this show, and you just had some of it there from Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, who we believe will be joining us later on in the week to talk about this issue exactly. So there are obviously the legal and political implications for the spying that happened. I used to work for a spying agency, so let me tell you, when I see the spying, I know the spying, and there was spying going on. We know this. It's a matter of public record against the Trump campaign. But beyond that, Clay, the point about the complicity of the media in all of this, that's not in any way an overstatement. That's actually a statement of fact. There were media entities and organizations that were early on trying to use this to effect, whether it was the publishing and pushing of the dossier, meetings between people in the media and members of the federal government, better known as now the deep state, people that are political actors operating from within the government. This is not over. And the more we find out, the worse it looks, not just for Hillary, the Democrats, and the apparatus that they run, but the media, man, they're never they're never going to be able to recover whatever credibility they thought they had before Russiagate.
What this continues to convince me of, Buck, and I didn't really need a lot of convincing, many media are imbeciles. And I don't mean that in like a paint with a broad brush and it's not accurate. I don't think there's a lot of smart people in the media. And I think there's a lot of insecure people in the media on top of not being very smart. And so they're afraid to have an opinion that runs counter to whatever the majority opinion is. And so, I don't know. I mean, maybe it was Jeff Zucker at CNN. Every morning, Jeff Zucker's coming in before he got fired, and he's saying all of these allegations against the Clinton campaign are lies. And he's saying, hey, the New York Post report about the Hunter Biden laptop, it's lies. And then everybody just follows those marching orders, and they're all afraid. I think social media has made it worse, Buck. Everybody's afraid of being targeted. And when you're afraid of being targeted, you lack the courage of your convictions because you're not that smart to actually look at the documents yourself and say, hey, this is kind of a big deal. I mean, one thing I can say about you and I is we actually read the things we talk about.
Ooh,
if I come on and tell you something, I'm like, hey, I've read this complaint. I've read this document. I've read this. And most people don't do it.
Interesting.
And as a result, I think their opinions end up awful.